There was one thing that made it impossible to justify Islam, and this was long after I had left the faith, and that's child sexual abuse. See, at least Jesus and Moses didn't take it upon themselves to be pedophiles. No. Prophet Muhammad was a very special individual. And see, the apologists will try to say, oh, well, it was cultural when he tried to marry the 6-year-old girl. But it was a different time, you see. Well, no, it wasn't. There are hadiths, apparently, in which the father of that child, Aisha was her name, was not happy with this sudden decision that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto everyone else, had made. You would think that this father would be doing anything he could to accept the Prophet's proposal, if it was indeed just a so-called different time, or cultural. But he doesn't. See, the first thing that he says out of his mouth, according to Sahih al-Bukhari 718, is, "But I am your brother," meaning brother in the faith. Now, why would he protest even a little bit if there wasn't something deeply wrong with this? This so-called prophet couldn't possibly be any kind of reasonable moral authority. And I didn't look back. This tenuous excuse to normalize sexual violence by claiming that the prophet was justified in some way, that speaks volumes to me. And I guess I'm thinking about this because of all the Hollywood sexual perversion scandal going on right now with Harvey Weinstein. The fact that an entire institution can just shake its head for 30 years and say, well, yeah, that's just Harvey. That's staggering to me, And I'm not sure what bothers me more, the sickening, wanton behavior of that degenerate, allegedly. You gotta say that. Or the people who called out his horrors only when they told their own stories. Let me explain. I've always been wondering why no one came out and said throughout all this time, hey, my mother, wife, sister, roommate, whatever, was victimized by Weinstein. And I'm going to go out and do an anonymous tip. I'm going to have a ghostwriter to write the story. Or I'm going to wear a wire. The police are going to come in and let me infiltrate. Something. Did every single person who knew about this have something to lose? Like everybody? Did every family member and friend and colleague of these women fear that they wouldn't get a picture deal or something? Like all of them? They just sat idly by and said, oh, well, our little angel, she's got to get her pilot greenlit. So we'll just chalk this up to being part of the showbiz, Hey, you should have known that's how those guys are over there. That's just Harvey. Like, really? Something just feels funny about that. Bill Cosby, allegedly, and Michael Jackson, allegedly, they couldn't last 30 years and do all this. Some people came out in between. Some people had to get bought out. But it was something people knew outside of the industry. It was something people talked about, at least a little bit. How did he get away with this? Well, look, maybe I would have done the same thing. Maybe I would have looked the other way, like all these other people said, that's just Harvey. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. But honestly, I feel like if I had permission to tell people that a friend that I have who's in the industry, a girlfriend, a mother, something, was assaulted, I can't imagine I'd do anything short of yelling it from the mountaintop no later than like a year after the fact and try to get that person in a cage as fast as possible. But look, I don't know what to do about it. You know, this is paralyzing to me because almost every single major female figure in my life has been molested or raped. I'm talking almost every single one. Okay? I can only think of about 2 by name who, as far as I know, was spared that. So throughout my life, I've felt helpless and sometimes even worthless around women because I get too violently enraged by some awful story that they've got. And please, don't tell me that you were abused as a kid. Oh, that kind of homicidal fantasy that I get from that information is incapacitating. I become this blubbering, shaking person, and I can't be that calm, empathetic, mature listener. I can't be the male ally who does all the right things and says all the right stuff and has all the hashtags. I can't be that guy. I'm sorry. Just, I can't deal. So, up pops the Me Too hashtag. You've seen this. It's been around. It's been dozens of countries. Alyssa Milano made the tweet, and it made this article pop up and say, "Hey, this Me Too hashtag. Where are all the men? You know, why aren't the men coming out in droves to support this and say what they can do differently?" Well, look. Okay. I don't know. Most men have evolved in patriarchal societies to avoid discussing their emotional pain. That's true. I'll give you that. But what makes people think that I'm going to be happy to jump on a computer and share a hashtag about my abuse or what I could do differently? Okay, first of all, if a boy knows that his female classmate won't be believed if she says she was molested or raped or something like that, why on earth do you think that he's going to be believed when he alleges the same thing? Why would you expect anyone to empathize with him if some female teacher or healthcare worker or classmate sexualizes him? Why would you just presume that? Second of all, we are just getting to the point as a society of accepting the idea that a grown woman is capable of forcing a little boy to do things that he doesn't want to do by threatening his life or his safety. It happens all the time. And there's no hashtag for that. That baggage sits in those boys of especially the 70s and the 80s because folks treated them like the kid in The Graduate. You know, oh, is Mrs. Robinson seducing you? They would make jokes about it, especially when I was younger. Okay, I'm stalling. I'm about to say something that only 3 people on the planet know. Okay? I didn't script this. I'm just going to say it. Okay, here's my Me Too moment. I'm not strong and I'm not brave. There was a time on a school bus where I was about 11 and these girls were just hell-bent on sitting next to me, and I was on the way home and I didn't know who they were, and they were in 7th or 8th grade, I think. So they were a couple years older, and they started talking about babies and pregnancy and my genitals and stuff like that, and I didn't want to talk to them, and I just looked out the window because I just thought it was weird, and I didn't know what to think about it, and they groped me before I got off the bus. Both of them were groping and pinching and stuff, and I felt really messed up because I didn't know if saying it would be believed. I didn't know if, my mom would go into a rage and start slicing people down because my mom was pretty protective, and I didn't want all of that. And I didn't want folks not believing me and thinking that I was... Well, honestly, I was scared that people would think that I wasn't interested in girls just because I was complaining about this, which is really twisted if you think about it. After that, there were two classmate girls who decided that groping me in the same way was a good idea in front of my classmates. And I had a teacher who thought that it would be a good idea to pressure me into kissing her. And, you know, so that's 5 right there. Okay. This is all before I was 13. And by that age, I did something bad. I attempted to do the same thing, and I'm not proud of it. There was someone who was someone I was interested in, and I thought that I would never be in a relationship because the girls didn't want to talk to me. They just wanted to touch me and go somewhere else. And I tried to touch a girl in my classroom in a similar way. Not in the classroom, but it was somewhere else. It didn't seem like she noticed, thankfully. So I've been on one end of it, and I've been on the other end of it. And I'm not saying this to say, oh, this is why it's okay for me to have done that. It's not. It makes me sick thinking about it. And it does not make me a good person just because I said it. Or even a good person because I went through it. It makes me a person, you see. So, what's my Me Too moment? I don't know. You know, I was the nice little Muslim boy. You know, you don't do stuff like that. But when you've got that kind of rigidity and an expectation to be the good little Muslim boy, and then girls do things to you, you don't know what to think. So, I never apologized. And it's too late. And I don't see any girls coming out talking about, you know, I admit that I touched a boy and, you know, or I lifted up my skirt in front of, you know, there's none of that. Like I say, there's no hashtag for that. So, you know, yeah, I don't know what I would do in these situations. I don't know. And that's kind of why these things happen, is because we don't know what to do. We put hashtags up and we act like we know, but we don't. You know, somebody goes this far doing this and has no remorse whatsoever and is brazen about it, where people know. That's just Harvey. You know? Who knows? Maybe there were men and women who were like, they pull the veil over their eyes and they just say, well, you know, I chose to do these things, you know? This is the way it is. That's just Muhammad. You know? Ooh, you're saying that Prophet Muhammad is like Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, well, God damn it, yes he was. Okay? Yes he was. Dude had like 9 wives floating around and a 6-year-old girl. I'm sorry. I'm going to be the one person who has like learned anything about Islam and just can tell the truth. Okay? And I sure as hell can't say that stuff about Islam out in public because, oh, how dare you? Scared of the powerful people that will destroy you because you say something about the big guy. Does it sound familiar? Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. So what the hell does this have to do with Islam? I'll tell you. Islam does a really great job of making certain people feel like their struggles aren't as important as other people's. It is a science with how they minimize the painful stories of a particular group just because it's us against them. It's the same kind of lie bullshit that the fringe on the left and the alt-right get away with spreading. You know, white people are this and black people are that, and women are just this and gay people are just that. If there were a room full of Harvey Weinsteins, and they had a book that legitimized rape and hurting women and all kinds of stuff, and they blamed people for not knowing that's just how it is. It would look a lot like Islam. It's not that Islam created the idea, but they just happen to have the latest version. The Quran is just sociopath playbook 3.0. Some of the nastiest ideas. And all it takes is a bunch of secular people saying, hey, that doesn't make any sense. This is crazy. But if you don't have that, you have people lowering the age of consent to 10 years old. Go ahead, yeah. You have gay people throwing off buildings. Oh, no problem. Go ahead, do that. Forced marriages, marital rape. Oh, that's not even a real thing. Don't worry about that. That's just Muhammad. No, I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing that game with Islam. I'm not playing that game with Hollywood. Because it's the same crap. There aren't enough people in there, just like Islam, there aren't enough people in there brave enough to say anything. And I'm not brave either. So I'm part of the problem. I'm not a hero. I'm not a great guy. I'm just me. I believe that I should, at the very least, point out when people are being abusive to the folks in my own life. That's all I can do. I'm not going to change Islam. I'm not going to change Hollywood. I can change what's going on in my backyard, though, and I'm going to. I will. I don't condone it regardless of who you are. I don't condone it if you're a leader of an organization or a leader of a religion or a male, a female, black, white, old, young. I don't care who you are. I don't condone it. And I can go to the victims and say, listen, you don't have to sit around thinking it's your fault or that it's normal or that it's the way it is. You don't need to let these people twist you up. And I wish somebody did that for me when I was younger. You know what? You can do something, okay? You can do something. You can make sure that people don't feel like they were asking for it, because then they won't let those things that happen to them twist their own actions and have them do bad things to other people. I mean, can you imagine if maybe one of those girls, maybe, something happened to them, and if people listened to them, maybe they wouldn't have done that to me. And the whole thing, I'm not saying that that's how it happens. I'm not saying I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm saying it's preventative. It's not your fault. It's not your fault for being a victim. It's not your fault for being forced into the role of survivor for the rest of your childhood. It's not your fault. Don't let that taint how you think of yourself and how you act toward other people. And don't let that blind you from the pain of other people either. Because, and this is a word for the people who, they champion the female victims of the Harveys of the world and then turn a blind eye when the female victims of the Muhammads of the world do the same thing. I would strongly suggest that you pick up a few hadiths in English. Take a peek in there. It's not just Hollywood. It's not just Harvey. You might see something in those hadiths that's a little bit more informative than the latest Huffington Post or Jezebel or Slate. Okay? And sadly, you might find some ideas in there that are a little bit more topical than you'd ever imagine. We're not all brave people. But that's okay.